nice golden brown crust on the chicken, okay?
Get it.
Not blonde, not really dark. We want to control our heat. This happens over about like a medium-high heat. Like I said, if you feel like it's going too hot, it starts to smoke, turn it down a little bit, okay? Because once it hits that nice hot pan, it'll start that process of rendering out the fat from that. Okay? As soon as we flip it over, it goes into the oven, 6.5 minutes. So, you have to clone and time it.
Okay, 6.5 minutes. It's 56 right now.
Okay, watch your face.
57 right now.
So when we saute, we're always looking for color. Notice how we got some browning happening? It's not quite enough yet. We got some bits stuck on the bottom of the pan. That's good stuff. We got me some garlic? Okay, we're gonna hit it with the garlic at the very end. And add a little bit more butter to it. We don't add the garlic. Oh, you got one too? You guys are so nice. We don't want to hit the garlic at the beginning because it will burn. Never turn our garlic brown. Okay? So whenever it tells you, recipe tells you to add in everything and the garlic at the same time, disbelieve that recipe. Okay? Always toss in the garlic at the very end, cook it until it just turns translucent, and then finish with whatever technique you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit and push it down with that. So hot. Add a little more butter just so that our garlic doesn't burn. Nothing wrong with a little bit of butter. Okay, we won't waste that. We use that for something else. Okay, now you can smell it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we want to just cook it enough.
Sounds like Benihana.
Somebody's timing my chicken, right? 6.5 minutes. I'm terrible at that. Good. Also, I had the bookstore buy you guys a bunch of those meat thermometers that have the probe with the wire that comes out so you can watch the temperature from the outside of the oven.
Really?
I highly recommend you go down and buy one. They're only like $30 at the most. I think like 25, $30. $25 or $30 for something that is going to make sure that your stuff is cooked perfectly every time. It's not a lot of money. Okay? So last thing that we do, we don't want to get those black. We want them nicely brown. I don't know if you guys can see them nicely brown. We're going to deglaze white wine. Okay? We're going to cook until how set. What does that mean?
Almost dry.
Huh?
Almost dry.
Almost dry. Okay, we want to get all that alcohol flavor out of there. So that means that we got to crank up the heat. If we turn down the heat, now we got to turn it up because we're evaporating water out of it, we're evaporating alcohol out of it. And if we leave it at a low temperature, that's going to take all day. There's nothing going to burn to the bottom of this pan with wine in it. So you can crank it all the way up until it gets down to that point. And then you might want to keep your eye on it.
Is that because of the alcohol, Chef?
Huh?
Is that because of the alcohol?
No, it's because it's a liquid. So if it was a thicker liquid, something that we've thickened with roux or something with milk in it, it might burn on the bottom if we just left it alone on high heat. It doesn't have any of that. It's just liquid. And we want to stir it around. Now you can look. See how the liquid's nice and brown too? The liquid's nice and brown too because we had all that wonderful fond on the bottom of the pan. Look, that's it's almost dry. Then you can either strip the thyme leaves off. You guys know how to do this easily, right?
Yeah, just take it and get it.
Strip them off. They'll come out. Huh? Or if you don't want thyme leaves swimming around in your soup, you can put the whole thing in, fish it out later. Okay, that's the nice thing about this. Okay, now see here? It's almost all the way gone. Nothing started to brown again. If it starts to brown again, we got to deglaze it again. Okay, if it starts to stick, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the last thing that we'll do is hit it with this heavy cream.
Yes.
And usually while your heavy cream will be kind of warm, because it'll go much faster if it's warm. No, warm like hot. Okay. Stick it in a pot, yeah. Put another pan while you're getting mise en place. Warm it up, just keep your eye on it. Because when cream reduces, the bubbles stack on top of each other and it'll pour all over your station. 2 minutes, Chef. 2 minutes, thank you. That's perfect, worked out great. So this is a modern version of a cream sauce, okay? Your recipe sticking with roux. I'll show you the difference. Make sure we have tasting spoons up for stuff. That's not. Now, I always want to season these kinds of things that I'm reducing at the very end, because if I season it now, I taste it, it tastes great. By the time it's done reducing, too salt. And I don't like this, by the way. There's a pepper grinder over there. Let's get fresh pepper every time we do this. You know? Or maybe somebody takes the spice grinder and they grind up some whole peppercorns for the whole class just for that day. Like, this is enough for the whole class all day long. Guaranteed.
Locally.
Yes. It needs to reduce quickly. It won't burn on the bottom as long as you shake it a few times. So what am I doing? I'm stirring it. Okay, you don't need a spoon to stir. In fact, when you work on the line, the more tools you have to pick out from and use, the longer it's going to take, the more inefficient you are. So you get used to shaking things, flipping things, right, without any kind of tool. This will be your best friend though. Okay, even though it's called a fish spatula, it's good for many things. Why are these little
What are they stuck inside?
It reduces drag, so it doesn't tear your product apart. Did I put time in there? Okay, I'm going to season just a little bit right now.
You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
You just turned. This might get a hotel or something.
While we're on this subject, I just want you guys to assume now that every pan that's in the kitchen is hot. This is the week where everybody starts to grab that pan that's come out of the oven because their friend put it down and they didn't realize. Okay?
Need much more than this? So, there's a couple of ways we can tell if it's done. 4 ways. What are the 4 ways? Thermometer.
Poke it.
Poke it with your finger.
Stuff
Poke
it
it with
with
a
a
knife
thermometer.
to get the juices to
You
clear.
can stab it a little bit, right? And I wouldn't recommend a knife. I would say take your thermometer and poke it in there, and then poke it right out. And what should happen
Try to
is,
see the juices.
so now see what's happening here. There's blood coming out because we didn't trim up this end. This is what happens when you don't trim off this end. That blood comes out the bottom. So the chicken is cooked. I can feel it. It's completely done. However, what we're going to have to do is, this is where you might have to take tongs. We're going to stick that little piece of the bone down there into that fat and let it cook out. Doesn't mean that it's not cooked. It's just stuff that's coming out. Okay? So you can see now it's no longer red, it's more brown. So we'll put that back in.
So what are you looking for?
Huh?
Show me temperature.
Temperature what?
165.
165. Would you like to check and see if I'm right?
I just
Been out
want
for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
But remember,
You always stick it in the thickest part. And remember, 165 is the temperature that we want when it's done carryover cooking. If we cook it to 165,
Oh, okay.
it could be too far. Okay? We're at 140 right now. It's going to be 240 about that. 145 right now. 146. As long as we can get it up to about 155, we're good to go. It's already out of the danger zone, but it's not hot enough to kill the salmonella. Okay? So that's what we want to make sure that we do. But you see the juices that come out are nice and clear. The only thing that I worry about is just this little part right here. You stick it back in there for a couple minutes. Just to make sure we've already got a little bit under the heat. Let's leave it back under there and just get the rest of that. Now our soup. Okay? Consistency. Take a look at it. Now been reducing, right?
This should be a little soup.
Press the back of the spoon. Nice consistency, right?
And we have all of our nice mushrooms in there. You can slice them. Just make sure that everything that goes on there is bite-sized. Mushrooms shrink a little bit, so cook them a little bit larger. Bite-sized food size. Maybe. But it's perfectly acceptable. What are you doing in my sauce, man? Not yet. It's not done.
Not ready. Yeah. Pretty good.
Remember, we like the pepper brand too.
Shit, told me he's so.
Now, where's my ladle? So when you guys make this, you're gonna make a little bit bigger batch. I made enough for one portion. You can make this as big a size as you need. But remember, if you're gonna do this a large batch, you need a lot more time for that cream to produce. It's gonna take a long time, especially if you have what's it called cold cream.
You reduce it
About by
cream?
half. Huh?
You reduce it about by half, or you just looking for the consistency for the.
You're looking for the consistency. You want it to be a soup consistency.
Supposed to be there like in a soup pot. So if the cream is warm, it's gonna reduce faster? Picking up?
Yes, go much faster. Okay. We never pour straight from the pan into the bowl. We always use some kind of utensil, right? Then you guys will garnish it. Put it into a warm bowl. It will stay warm longer. Now, try that.
Ciao, ciao, try it.